don't need your money, you can pay me in respect. Cause once I do it big, what's to follow? It's a check. I need 100 bags, nothing more, nothing less. And the ops feel away, cause I'm next, I'm a threat. Oh yeah, really y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat.
Welcome to another episode of Elevate with Scott Handley. Today I have a very special guest, Jason Shumard, who actually has given a new twist to health and functional medicine. So welcome to the podcast, Jason. Thanks for coming.
Having me here. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing a little bit of a change. Usually we're talking about real estate or mortgages or business, but we're going to talk about the real wealth is health. That's what we talk about. Health is wealth. So therefore, Jason's going to talk about what he does and how he can improve our lives.
Hey, you use my line there. I use that all the time.
Oh, wow.
Wealth, all the time. It's fantastic.
Great minds think alike.
Right? So I specifically work with type 2 diabetics. We've been doing this now for nearly 20 years. And just to kind of give you a little bit of background on that, the reason why I got into type 2 diabetes, because it's kind of a unique category, if you will. My mom was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So when she was initially diagnosed, like most people, maybe yourself as well included, thinking, no, we can be managed with lifestyle, nutrition, medications, etc. But what I noticed over the years, she kept progressively getting worse. Her increase in medication kept happening, and it just didn't seem right. Mm-hmm. And me going to school at the time, learning about health, I was like, okay, I got to look into more of this. So I found what's called functional medicine. And functional medicine evaluates the body from looking to see what areas are broken or are just not working optimally. Taking your car to the mechanic when you have a check engine light, right? Your car still works, but something's wrong. And that's kind of what we look for in the body. We can do comprehensive analysis to see exactly what mechanisms are being driven that's causing the problems. And type 2 diabetes is no different. So when we started looking into this more, started unraveling what's really going on, we were actually able to take people that are full-blown diabetic and become non-diabetic. It's a really awesome situation.
And that is amazing because, type 2 diabetes is almost like an epidemic. Now, to kind of dumb it down for the audience, so basically type 1 diabetes, that's more hereditary. Is that correct?
Genetic, that's correct.
It's genetic. And then type 2, is that 100% lifestyle?
It's a contributing factor.
Okay.
Right? That's what's so unique about type 2 diabetes in the years of me researching this and evaluating is that there are so many different things that can contribute to type 2 diabetes. And that's why one individual will have a certain set of problems that's causing their diabetes. The next one will completely different.
Very interesting.
So it requires a customized solution, which is why in medicine, I don't want to use the word they're failing. They're just not addressing the true mechanisms and why people continue to stay diabetic. And most of the time, if you go to your doctor and you say, hey, what can we do to reverse my diabetes? They'll say you can't reverse it. And it's because of the protocols. Yeah. It's the protocols they're doing that can't reverse it. There's no pharmaceutical drug that's ever been shown you can reverse diabetes. So with the tools they're using, again, I think it's necessary. They should be doing that because if not, they can get to a dangerous situation. But if you're looking for reversal, you're not going to find in that model.
Wow. Makes sense. Now, do you feel like in traditional medicine, is it a one size fits all?
That's exactly right. If you go to your doctor, they're going to tell you to change your diet. Mm-hmm. They're going to tell you to exercise, lose weight, and take medication. And with no specifics, meaning they're not going to tell you exactly what to eat, how much to eat. They're going to say reduce carbs or, reduce your sugars and stuff like that. So many times people are challenged trying to figure this out on their own, right? Even if they go to a nutritionist or a dietitian, sometimes they're not getting all the full understanding. And you can go to Dr. Google, get some good information, if you will. But again, it's very challenging to figure it out on your own. And they just throw their hands up in the air. I don't know what to do. And they just get worse.
Right. And especially if we just start going online, we're in the information age where I feel it's almost too much information. So, it's good someone would find someone like you. And, Jason, I can already tell this is something that's passionate. 20 years doing this. And then also, came from your mother. That's an amazing story. You were embarked and ahead of the curve on things because I almost feel nowadays, just almost recently has it become nutrition and functional and longevity and healthy living and vitality. You were already on this 20 years ago. So you've seen, a lot. What would you say during that? What's different when you first started to where you're at now as the research and what you're seeing?
Well, the research there's a ton of stuff coming out, but I'll tell you one thing that's been really a strong one in my mind is I've been following this nutrition plan that I teach my patients to do. Like I eat the same way that I recommend to them eat. Like I don't just do something different and say, oh, you guys have to be more restrictive, and I'm not doing that. It's how I eat. It's how my family eats, how my kids eat. I'll tell you a quick story real quick. Just last November, when they had the Macy's Day Parade during Thanksgiving, my daughter starts saying, who's this clown? Who's the clown on there? And it was Ronald McDonald, because they've never been to McDonald's. They've never experienced that before.
Right.
They don't know about that type of food because we're just teaching them a certain way of how they should be eating. But in regards to the research for type 2 diabetes, there's a lot of research coming out that you can truly fix diabetes, because if we get into the real nitty gritty, if you will, most people believe that type 2 diabetes is a blood sugar problem. The sugar's going up.
Correct.
But the reality is that's a symptom of the disease. It's not the cause. The real cause is your cells, and we call it a cellular disease. They also refer to it in medicine as insulin resistance.
Okay.
Insulin resistance people have heard of, but they have no clue what it means. Most people think that the body's just resistant to insulin. So just give you a really easy understanding of what this looks like, and I'll give you an analogy as well, is that if you put gas in your car, in the gas tank, there's a gas line that has to get to the engine for the gas, because that's our fuel source.
Right.
Before that, there's a little filter. It's called a fuel filter, to filter all the junk that may be going into the engine before it gets in there. Well, our cells are no different. So I know when we eat food, that food gets converted to sugar. That's our fuel source, is sugar. It's our gasoline. Goes into your bloodstream, then has to go into your cells through a little door. It's a cellular door that opens and closes to allow the sugars to come in. Once those sugars get in, now your body can function, just like your car can drive.
Right.
But with diabetes, those cellular doors become closed. And when you have enough of those percentage of doors that are closed, because there's trillions of cells, you'll start pushing sugars back to the bloodstream, causing elevated sugars. And what is the focus? To try to lower those sugars and never the cell damage.
Gotcha.
And that's where it's being missed in the medical model right now.
And that's where you're keeping your focus in on the cells.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
Now, you said there could be many different factors of type 2 diabetes. You mentioned McDonald's. How much is processed food a factor, in your opinion, with type 2 diabetes?
Huge. And I would be, foolish not to say that, because those processed foods, those bad oils, the bad fats, they're going to start to clog up the cells, right? They're going to start causing damage in those cells. But amongst that, they're going to create other areas of damage. The gut, your liver, your kidneys can be damaged, these other areas. So it's super important, because most people don't realize there are multiple organs and systems and tissues that are involved in your blood sugar regulation.
Wow.
And so if you don't evaluate all of those areas, you're going to be missing a lot of components that are contributing to the high sugars, and all you're doing is changing the way you eat. Right. I'm a big guy on analogies, so I apologize if I'm doing a lot of analogies today.
No, you're making a complicated subject very something we could understand, especially with the car analogy.
Yeah. And so I'll use another one in regards to food, because it is a big component. We understand that. But imagine if somebody is driving down the road and it's a dirt road, right? Over time, when you drive over that dirt road, day after day after day, there's going to be ruts in the road. There's going to be rocks. The alignment on the car is going to be damaged over time. It's going to be veering off the road.
Right.
Now, if you take that same alignment issue and now you pave that road, is the alignment going to be fixed?
No.
So it's no different with food, right? If you eat a bad quality food and you change your diet, all that damage that was created by the food is still going to be there. That's why diabetics, when they eat better, they'll lower their sugars for a period of time, but that damage is still there, and over time, the sugars go right back up again. And it's very frustrating for them.
Interesting. So aside from diet, what are also some recommendations that you do have or that your services offer to help reverse that?
Yeah, so I guess I'm very biased in this. The great thing that we do is all holistic. So we don't use pharmaceutical drugs. As I mentioned, there is no pharmaceutical drugs that have shown to reverse diabetes. There's lots of pharmaceutical drugs that'll reduce blood sugars, but reducing blood sugars isn't fixing the problem, because it's not fixing the cells, as we talked about before. So other problems, let's just talk about some of the other organs that are involved in the body that are regulating blood sugars. Your thyroid is a big gland that's involved in blood sugar regulation. Many people have thyroid problems.
Right.
They're taking pharmaceutical drugs to address the thyroid problem. But if the medication was working, they'd be off the medication, and the thyroid be functioning better. So again, they're not asking the question, what caused the thyroid problem? We want to always ask the why. Like I have young kids, and when they're really young, they always ask why, and it gets that annoying.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what I do as a functional medicine practitioner. I keep asking why until we find out what's really going on with the individual.
Wow, that's awesome. Digging deep. Also, it's custom to, genetics, how that play a role. So everything is kind of custom to your patients.
Yeah,
directly.
One good thing I will tell you though is that at least to date right now in science, there has never been shown a diabetic gene that is contributing to type 2 diabetes.
Interesting.
So that means that it doesn't have a genetic predisposition. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not other genes that could express certain things that contribute to the cellular disease that can lead to diabetes, but not a direct gene to type 2 diabetes at this point.
Makes sense. Let's talk about the person that needs to carry around a needle, prick themselves. And is there anything that they could do to get off that? Have you seen some of your patients get off that?
Yep.
Because from my understanding, once you prick, you're on that thing for life for the most part.
Yep. Again, that's another misconception because that's what's being told.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing we want to ask the question is, I was giving you the example of, the cells, right? So to go a little deeper, insulin is what you're referring to. And the organ that creates insulin in your body is called the pancreas. And so when the sugar comes out of your digestive tract into your bloodstream, the pancreas produces insulin. It grabs onto the sugar, drags it down to the cell. The insulin then attaches to what's called a receptor. We'll call it a lock, right? And the insulin unlocks that allows the doors to open up the sugars to go in. That's truly the mechanism. So that's why they call it insulin resistance, because the insulin can't get into the receptors and the cell doors can't open. That's why they call it that, because it's truly a cellular disease. So in this scenario that I'm referring to is, if you're taking excessive insulin, you're trying to bombard the body with insulin, what sense does it make to give them more insulin if they're insulin resistant? See, most people believe it's because their pancreas is no longer working. And I'll tell you, I evaluate, 100 to 200 people a month in our practice, every single month. And I rarely ever see that the pancreas is ever the issue, meaning that person is usually going to be able to produce sufficient amount of insulin in their body. It's because a higher percentage of their cells are damaged, so they need more insulin to seek and find out any cell they can find, bombarding it. And that can be very unhealthy because insulin is a very unhealthy hormone at high levels for the body.
I see. So let's talk about, a lot of people, and Jason, you're doing such great work in you're educating, the public, because a lot of the public will think they're at a grocery store and buying something that's labeled as healthy, but you look at the ingredients and it's got a laundry list of stuff that we can't even pronounce. We don't know what dextrose sugar and corn syrup and canola oils are. You're doing amazing work, because some people just, they go to the grocery store and on the label it says healthy or, something like that, but it's actually processed food. So what is your take on the food industry and the ingredients that they are putting into our foods?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. The preservatives and things you're putting in, the injections, the hormones, et cetera, are just super unhealthy for our body. But you couldn't have said it better, right? If you can't understand the word, if you can't read it, you should be eating it. Right. My favorite thing is, and I'm not saying this is what you should be doing as an example, but it's just an example. If you look at a potato chip bag, the only thing that should be in there is potatoes. Mm-hmm. But you look at the back of it, it's got 5 or 6 rows of foods in them, because it's preservatives and taste that chemistry is done to make it taste a certain way so that your brain wants you to eat more.
Yeah.
And that's the only purpose.
And you don't feel satiated.
Food has now become a chemistry scientific approach where the more that you can eat, the better off for them, because they're going to increase the revenue, which is going to make more profit for them. So they're trying to change the chemistry so that you taste better. So oftentimes you ask somebody and say, hey, well, we want you to eat vegetables. I don't like vegetables, because their taste buds are so ruined from the foods they've been eating all these years that they don't even know what food even tastes like anymore.
Wow. So it's changed drastically as we've seen big corporate companies come in. I heard some of these corporations were cigarette companies that have gone into the food industry. I've also heard Kraft cheese can't even call their cheese because there's not enough milk in it. Same with the freezer drumsticks. I guess those have to be called like frozen cones. Can't even call it ice cream. So, those are the things where those are the hidden killers. Not a lot of people really know what they're putting in their body, and you are what you eat. So you're doing fantastic work on getting that out there. Now, we talked about, big pharma and traditional medicine is more of a reactive way of addressing issues. Like you talk the talk and walk the walk, even with you and your family and your lifestyle. So you approach not only type 2 diabetes, but a healthy way of living from a proactive stance. So you're trying to make sure that these things don't come up. Is that correct?
100%. I mean, even on myself, I get checked. I get my body evaluated once or twice a year just to verify that things are going okay. I don't want to just assume things are going great and then something happened one day. And I think that many people do that. And unfortunately, the type of testing that's being ran in the traditional model is very minimal, right? What medication do you need, or are you good where you're at right now? And I think if we're looking for function rather than looking and waiting for something to occur, a symptom, it's too late by that time.
I see. Okay, so tell me, about your patients when you are working with them. Adjusting to a lifestyle change, is that hard for you to have your patients do?
Well, it is challenging. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, change is always challenging in any way you look at it.
Right.
But the reality is, when you look at type 2 diabetes, it's a very devastating disease. Not only can it contribute to major complications like, heart attacks and strokes, right? Vision loss, brain problems. And if we look at that, why are all these different areas affected? Because all those tissues are made of cells. And whatever cells is being damaged faster, that's where you're going to experience the symptoms. So when you have a condition like this, and the worst case scenario is death. So if you have that staring in your face, knowing that this disease could potentially take me away from my family, my loved ones earlier in life, usually people start to get
Put it
more
in
motivated.
perspective on that. Now, I've heard type 2 diabetes leads to amputation. Is that
That's
true?
right.
Is that cell related, or what's behind that?
100%, because if we think about this, look at the nerves. Nerves are made of nerve cells. So when enough of the nerve cells are damaged, right, you start to lose circulation, because the nerve cells require circulation, because it's like your electrical system to make sure your circulation is working. So if you start losing circulation to certain tissues, what happens? Amputation. Start cutting off. They cut off the toe, then the foot, then eventually the leg, especially when things are progressing over time.
Interesting. Now, staying on that same subject of cells, does stem cells play in any part of your medicine or anything that you're researching or recommending?
Yeah, I think stem cells is the future. I think there's a lot of benefits, especially for like brain type of things and other types of cells that are breaking down to speed up the process. But again, imagine if you're putting in, more furniture on a burning house.
Okay.
It's
yeah.
just gonna it may look the house for a little while, but it's gonna burn up right over time. So we've got to first get the nice foundation stabilized, then start bringing in those additional building up the body to get it healthier. So we want to put out the fire first. And that's
Gotcha.
what we really focus on, is putting out the fire, and then we can build from there.
Is there a reason why I see like athletes have to go, to Europe, or they go out of the country for stem cell? Is it pretty regulated?
Yeah, it is. It's very well regulated. FDA is really regulating all these things that benefit health, and typically these days,
Yeah.
it's very frustrating. I have a lot of stories that we don't have to say on the podcast here, but there's just a lot of things you see. You're like, that doesn't even make any sense at all. But it does make sense when you really look at the big picture, because it's really profit margins rather than health related.
Right. Profits, and hospitals need to be filled up, and prescriptions need to be sold. Jason, you and I were talking off camera a little bit about red meat and the difference maybe of grass-fed red meat and some that are grain-fed. I know some people say, hey, become a vegetarian, meat's terrible for you. What's your stance on red meat?
Yeah, here's what I think. If you look at the human being, you look at their mouth, right? We have these teeth right here. Those are called incisors. If you look at them on lions, they're a lot bigger, but it's still the same type of teeth, which means human beings should be eating meat, right? That's the reality. The bad thing is that a lot of our meats are poor quality, right? So most of the grains that are being created in the United States are what's called genetically modified, right? And those are not good for your gastrointestinal system. They cause a lot of issues. They create something called leaky gut, which is not good for your gut, creates immune suppression. It's just really bad. So if you're eating foods, meats that have been grain fed, right? They can be from a cow to a chicken to turkey. If they're being grain fed, guess what? That's getting into the meats and you're getting that same type of food exposure. That's not good. But if you're getting good quality meats, organic chickens, organic turkeys, or organic beef that is grass fed and grass finished, that's a huge difference. And it tastes so much better when it's a grass fed and grass finished. Many people may disagree. It doesn't taste as good, but I believe it is. And it's much leaner and has a better flavor to it as well. That's the type of meat you should be looking for.
I see. Okay, yeah, because I get different, opinions on meat, but you definitely answered it how I wanted to hear it, because I want to continue with meat. I've had people trying to steer me away from it.
Yeah, I think, and there's some vegetarian. You want to have moderation, right? You're not eating every single day, right? Some days maybe you're just eating vegetables and eating more vegetarian diet. Other days you're eating more animal protein. When you're bringing that whole rounded food, it's better for your body than just one thing. Because again, back in the day when we were hunters and gatherers, we'd eat meat for one day and it'd be like have to last us for 30 days.
Right.
So we have a lot more ability these days, and it may not be something you do every day, but it is beneficial still.
Makes total sense. Now, you did mention something about, hunters and gatherers, and we would, get our meat and not know when our next meal is coming. A fad that has become very popular nowadays is intermittent fasting or fasting in itself. Do you recommend it? I've heard even people out there saying after, 36-hour fast, or even after 3 days of fast, then your body's producing these cells that can kill cancer. What's your take on that?
I love it. I think there's phenomenal options. What I don't like is consistently, there's a lot of people who will fast for 16 hours and only eat for 8 hours. I think that's okay in moderation. Again, moderation.
Right.
But if you're doing that every single day, it's not good for your body. And yes, if you want to fast for 3, 5, 7 days and maybe once or twice a year, very beneficial. If you want to fast for 24 hours once a week, but then the rest of the time you're eating, only fasting for 12 hours, or you're doing 14 hours, those are all going to be beneficial. Most of us are fasting for 12 to 14 hours as it is, right? You eat dinner at 7 p.m. You don't eat breakfast till about 7 or 9. That's 12 to 14 hours.
Right.
You fasted at that point. So, but having the well-rounded food is what's really important. And unfortunately, most people, when they're eating bad food. They think it's good food, but it's actually bad food.
Right.
So it's the combination of both.
Wow. No, this is just an amazing takeaway here with all this stuff, Jason. How do your clients, how do they get in contact with you? You did say you're out of San Diego.
Yes.
But most of your clients are across the country.
Yep.
So can you talk about how you can offer your services, your expertise? Because I really feel more people need to, tap in with you, and what you're spreading here is just amazing. So how can they contact you?
Yeah. So the great thing about our office is that we are a virtual practice. And I think this really started to become more popular during COVID, right? When you had, more doctors' visits over on Zoom and online, everything. And people are wanting this. I mean, I'm in San Diego. When I had my brick and mortar, it would take some people 45 minutes one way to get to my office. Very frustrating. And then 45 minutes back home.
Right.
Now they can pop on to a Zoom call from their couch, have our meeting, go over everything we're going to be doing, and then go back to their day. They'll have to drive. It's just making things more efficient. We can send them things through the mail. We can do things through our online portals. Which is our EMR, which is how we communicate with our patients. And we work across the country, which is great. We can do testing across the country in the towns you live in. It just makes things a lot more simple, and you don't have to seek out these types of individuals like myself. I work with someone in rural Texas. There's no functional medicine doctors in their area. They have one little hospital and a couple of different doctors. They have no options. We're bringing that now to the environment so they have the ability to get the care they need with our type of approaches. So the easiest way is to go to my website. It's my last name, drshumard.com. So drshumard.com. Makes it super simple. Go to the website. You can learn more about what we do, and you can seek out more if you want to reach out to us and get an appointment.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because, access to this type of information is definitely vital. Now, do you ever have any, let's say, traditional doctors, or, tried to, combat what you have to say? Do you ever have conversations with, your traditional doctor or some doctor that, Pfizer pushes them to push? Do you ever have conflicts when you guys speak?
100%. And we have a lot of patients who come back and say, my doctor doesn't agree with this, doesn't think it's a good option. I always say, whatever's best for you.
Okay.
Right? You make the choice.
Right.
The good news about our own health, we can make our own decisions.
Yeah.
We're not at the mercy of the medical system or any doctor, right? We have the ability to make our own choices as adults. And my personal belief is your body is the smartest doctor you're going to come in contact with. The problem is if there's imbalances or issues going on, it loses that ability and its innate ability to heal. And so if we can restore that, right? We're not suppressing, we're not changing, we're not telling them to get off medications, we're not telling them to do anything that their doctors are doing. I want their doctor to be involved. We want that triad, their doctor, the patient, and us. So that's how you get really healthy.
Love it. So it doesn't have to be one or the other.
I don't want it to be ever one or the other. But there are some patients that are just frustrated with their doctor and they don't want to go back to them because they're like, they're not helping me. But I always tell them you want to have that person on your team because there's going to be a time when you're going to need to come off that medication. And they're the ones who are going to take you off because they put you on it. And they can help you reducing it at the speed that's best for your body.
Wow. Yeah, I'm finding this fascinating. So if it's okay, I kind of want to dig in a little bit deeper to understand what roles does sleep and exercise play with type 2 diabetes?
It's massive.
Wow.
Those are two of the most common symptoms that we see. And there's a reason for that. Let's go back to the cells, right? In your cells, if you can't get your fuel into your cells, you can't produce energy.
Yeah.
You'll be tired. You're fatigued. Your metabolism is going to go down. So what's going to happen when your metabolism goes down? You gain weight, right? That's why you see this prototypical diabetic patient. They're run down. They have a lot more visceral fats. They have no energy. They don't want to go do anything, no motivation. And they can't sleep throughout the night because they're waking up up all night long. And it's because they're getting fluctuations of sugars going up and down their body, which is stimulating their brain, keeping them awake.
Very interesting.
So that's a common symptom that we're seeing, and it's because it goes back to the same problem that we're trying to fix, the cellular disease.
Wow. Okay. So they really don't get into deep REM because of how their body's functioning.
Yeah, especially as they're progressing with the disease. Maybe in the early stages, the first 5 years, they may not have as much of a problem, but they start going further than that. Yeah, if you started using trackers, like I love using sleep trackers to evaluate my sleep. I do it every single night. I just use the Oura Ring. I don't work for them. I get no benefit. I love it because it's very simple to put on my finger. It's not intrusive, and I can just the other thing is the EMF component. Like I don't like having a lot of EMF exposure on my body as much as possible. So with the Oura Ring, you have to take it off, put it down, and when you link it to your phone, that's what it extracts the data from it.
Gotcha.
So it's not looking for your phone the whole time, and it'll tell you what was your REM sleep, what was your deep sleep, how many hours you sleep. What was your score for how you're going to be that day. Like this gives you a lot of great information, and I think people should be using those because I think they're phenomenal.
Do you personally have a nighttime routine and a consistent bedtime?
I would say it was not consistent all the time. I have kids and I also have to run a business, so there's often times. But my consistency is I do have a consistency. When I go to bed, I always want to read before because reading will calm the brain and relax things before going to sleep. So I turn off TV and everything at least 30 minutes before going to bed. Usually my bedtime is between 10:30 and 11, and then I'm up around 6:15 every single morning with my workouts.
Love it. Any blue block, red light therapy, any of that stuff?
Every time I'm on the computer, I'm wearing blue block, like the blue blockers for sure for on computers, because I definitely notice the difference when I'm not using it compared to when I do. I'm more energetic throughout the day. It really makes a big difference.
So takeaway business guys, we're on the computers all the time.
Yep.
So moving to exercise, is there any exercise that could benefit type 2 diabetes better than the other, like steady state cardio versus maybe HIIT, or don't do weights, just walk? Is there anything that you could recommend with regard to exercise in combating type 2 diabetes?
Yeah, most of the type 2 diabetics, unfortunately, they need to start really slow, right? They're thinking they need to go run or go for a long hike or whatever. But it just is something as simple as getting out for a 15-20-minute walk is sufficient enough activity for them to start getting their metabolism, getting their body rolling, because we're not using exercise to fix the problem. We want to use exercise to help their cardiovascular system, get stronger muscles and those sort of things. Because the more we have good protein-bound muscles, the better we're going to have better metabolism. They're going to burn more fat. Their body's going to be more efficient. The machine will be running. But many times we're just doing some very basic type things to get till they get a little bit better. Then we start increasing. So we just want them moving.
Right. Okay.
Just whatever movement they can do. I mean, if they're like, you have stairs at home, walk up and down the stairs 5 times. Just some sort of activity on a regular basis, but that alone can be challenging for many of them as well.
Well, I like your approach on it. You're not trying to just add on a bunch of stuff. You're looking at the lifestyle and saying, hey, before we add some, let's start taking away a few things.
Yeah.
And again, the proactive approach on that. So that's, pretty amazing. You mentioned, up about 6:30 in the morning. Do you have a very strict morning routine? I know people like you and I, entrepreneurs, I get mixed messages. Some people have a very dialed in routine, have to meditate, do their affirmations, drink their water, get to the gym, come back. And then there's other people like Alex Amosi said, forget a gym routine. I just get up and work. So how about your morning routine? What's that?
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't call it strict. It's really fluid, if you will. But one of the things that I love is I've created my own gym in my own garage.
Oh, nice.
So I get to just go into my garage. So depending on the day, some days I live in a great little community. It's really kind of country like type living with a lot of hills. So I'll just maybe go for a 30-minute walk and then come back and do my lifting, because I like to try to lift weights every single time I do a workout, because I think that's really important for my muscles. And I'll do like a circuit where I'm getting every single muscle group, or I'll just focus on a couple different muscle groups and do a couple series on that type of thing. Or if I'm not feeling to go for a walk, I have an exercise bike, or I have a rower. Those are the main things I normally use for my cardiovascular, just because I don't want to, again, everyone has their own decisions. I don't want to do a lot of running because of my knees. I want to save them. I did a lot of sports as a kid, so I don't have knee issues right now, and I don't want to create those or hip problems. So the low impact type stuff is what I normally try to do.
Swimming
as well. Yeah, we got a pool in our backyard, so we do some swimming back there, or just doing some little like resistance training in this pool is just phenomenal resistance training as well. Yeah,
that's awesome. See, you're the exact guy that I take advice from, because most of my doctors, they've been completely obese and telling me what to do. Sometimes it's hard. I guess I get this, what do they call the bad dentist, the teeth, the dentist that has bad teeth, the best dentist type deal. But to me, I got to be motivated. I look at someone like you, talks the talk, walk the walk, very extremely knowledgeable on the subject. I mean, that's who I want to take my information from, not, I'm someone that I'm like, oh, I'm looking at you, but you're telling me to do this,
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for
that
that.
that definitely is motivating there. We'd like to talk a little bit more on, the entrepreneur side of things, to be dialed in with your morning routine, nighttime routine, family, running a business. Stress plays a very high role, on people that are operating at high levels. How do you handle stress, Jason?
Yeah, I think you said earlier, one of the things I love is meditation, right?
Okay.
And exercise. For me, those are two big stress relievers I've just been able to implement into my life. So during the day, if I feel like I'm getting we all have it, things just kind of pile on everything, I'll just go into my office, do like a maybe 10, 15 minute just meditation, just get my brain back, get all the negative energy out, and I'm back to being that individual. Or I'll just go into my garage gym and go do a quick workout and get that out of there as well. So those are usually the two big things that I do for stress related type things.
Awesome. So stress management, how would you say, how important has that been for your journey of 20 years of building your business?
Huge. I mean, I had a brick and mortar for 16 years. So I decided that the brick and mortar wasn't necessary for me anymore. But when I had the brick and mortar, I had more stress than I've ever had, right? It was the commute, 30 to 45 minutes each way, leaving the house at 7 a.m., getting home at 7:30 every single night, missing my kids, sometimes just barely making baths or being able to put them to bed. It was just really stressful, just in the family side, but also the business side as well. But when I went virtual, right, I mean, it's just been incredible, because now I just walk into my office, right? And if I want to go have lunch with my wife, or want to go, for a walk in the middle of the day, we can go for a walk together. And I'm for sure there every night for dinner and baths, and also, putting them to bed as well. So that to me has been like huge as part of my ability to be a father, but also be able to run a successful business.
I love it. And it seems like you're found a place where you're very balanced out. Yep. I still struggle with that a little bit, because when I'm in scale mode, I'm not sure if I believe I can balance. I almost feel like one area has got to take a sacrifice. One area I do never want to have sacrifice is family or time with kids or my wife and stuff like that. How about when you were in scale mode? Were you always balanced out like this, or were you just focused on the business, growing the business, and has health ever took a back seat for you? Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they're in scale mode, they're getting after it, but their health is taking a back seat, and then they don't care. They'll say, well, I'll try to clean it up, when I'm in a financial position. So did you ever go through that?
100%. Definitely. I've gone through that. I call it the hole, right? You get in this little hole and you're trying to dig yourself out and you can't get out and everything. It just becomes everything's closing around you. And for me, like one of the things that really helped me, I can't remember who said this, but it was when I was in my brick and mortar, I would take that 30 to 45 minutes to unwind, right? Get my brain clear, because I didn't want to bring that baggage into the house.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just kind of let loose. And I just promised myself, I would say, like, I'm not going to look at anything. I'm not going to open my computer. I'm just going to spend that time and be authentic and present with my family and kids. It's a little more challenging now because I have to walk out my office door and I'm there. So it's like those 12 steps, I got to redo that every single time. And sometimes I'm not the best, and I do bring it and the kids get a little frustrated with me, and I'm working on those. But I try to just kind of, when I'm leaving my office, I'm done for the day, and I just want to make sure, go to the pool and swim with the kids for an hour or two while my wife's getting dinner ready or whatever it might be, just to kind of engage with them.
That's a great takeaway, myself included. I'm here 7 to kind of 6, 7 as well. And in the beginning, I still wouldn't be present. Sometimes I'd look at a text and then my mind would shift and stuff like that. Now I'm learning to compartmentalize. You have to do it quicker because you got to walk out of your office and compartmentalize to family. I recently had to put my phone on do not disturb, just because I want to be present, and I'll never get that time back. So that was a huge takeaway just right there, Jason, was, being present where you're at, being able to compartmentalize, because there are times where things overlap and lead over. Could you be so kind to share us maybe a vulnerable spot in building the business? What has maybe been the toughest challenge growing your business, or what are some pain points in scaling your business for the last 20 years that you've encountered?
I would say, one of the things I read a long time ago that really kind of ignited me to create the structure we have is the E-Myth. A lot of entrepreneurs have read that book. I'm not sure if you've read that book.
I've heard of it. I haven't read
Michael
it yet.
Gerber. It's a phenomenal book where it essentially just tells you, you do the position and then you hire yourself out and you fill that someone else in. That was always the struggle for me.
Delegating.
Letting loose of things that I knew I could do really well, because I knew it was the only way I was going to be able to scale. Right. So when I went for my brick and mortar, before I went virtual, there was 3 of us, myself, and I had two team members handling the entire functional medicine practice. We now have a team of 24.
Oh, wow.
In less than 3 years. And so because I had this vision of what I wanted to do, and the other reason why is because roughly around that time was my mom passed from diabetes. So it really put a fire into my butt, if you will. It's like, hey, this can't happen, and I need to think bigger. I need to do some bigger things. I was trying to be too restrictive. I was maybe a little timid about saying things about what's going to be said bad about me. Is someone going to come after me and saying whatever it is? So that changed. And from that point on, we just continue to expand and grow, which means I had to bring in the right people, train them, allow them to make their own mistakes, learn from it, and get better and better. And that's when we're able to now get to this point where we're scaling and we're continuing. So we're still in scale as well right now. And so I have a goal, to get to a certain point, and until we get there, I'm just going to keep on going. But I can't forget about me.
Yeah, exactly. So which leads me to my last question. You said you're going to get to that point. You're going to keep going till you get to that point. Jason, I'd like to ask you, with regard to life, do you feel life's about the destination, or do you believe it's about the journey, or do you believe it's a little bit about both?
I think it's about the experience and the journey. So I think it's every single day. Yeah. I, of course, want to have a vision. I've done vision boards, and I remember before we moved into our new house in 2019. We were going through all our stuff in the garage, and I saw all my vision boards, and it had everything that I've achieved in the last 5 years. I couldn't believe it. I hadn't even seen it since I did it, and we achieved everything. So I think you put the vision out there, and there's little steps along the way, and you're going to meet that along the way. But it's enjoying that experience, because if you don't, you're just looking towards the future constantly. You're going to miss all things that are around you right now.
smell the roses while you can. Yeah,
absolutely.
No, that's a great answer because, if it really was about the destination, why would Tom Brady go back for a second, third, fourth Super Bowl? Why would, Kobe and Mike, so, I guess, it's, and within that journey, there's going to be trials and tribulations and ups and downs, but that's life. And that's what, makes life so beautiful.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, thank you again, Jason. I appreciate everything on here. We got to do this again. I learned a lot, and this has just been great takeaways.
I appreciate having you, man. It was really fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jason.
Thanks.
Cool.